For 975 days now, Ukrainian soldiers have bravely continued to defend not only the Ukrainian state, but the entire democratic world, fighting against the invading army of dictator Putin. Recently joined by soldiers from North Korea, the Ukrainian military has proven its loyalty and steadfastness. Every day, Ukrainian soldiers risk their lives to stop the aggressor and protect the freedom of the entire democratic world. The Russian occupiers are going to war for Putin's money and ambitions, because it is clear that the dictator plans to seize not only Ukraine, but also other European lands. Today, I will show you real battles at the front and the ruthless destruction of Russian occupiers' equipment. I am Hustler, and it is a great honor for me to show you this. Let's get started. This is an armored personnel carrier of the Russian infantry. It tried to escape from the Ukrainian kamikaze drone at all speeds, but the drone operator was faster, and after a targeted strike, the armored vehicle was completely destroyed. This one also thought it could outsmart the Ukrainian drone. Another armored vehicle with Russian soldiers, which was intended for an assault. The kamikaze drone managed to damage the transporter, and then a Ukrainian tank arrived and finally finished off the target. And now you can see the work of Ukrainian artillery destroying Russian tanks. The hit was so accurate that the tank's turret flew off. 2 more Russian tanks were spotted near Ukrainian positions. One of them was successfully destroyed by Ukrainian artillery. An unexpected event happened here for the Russian occupiers. They tried to find a Ukrainian drone in the sky and shoot it down. Suddenly, a Ukrainian tank drove up to them and fired an aimed shot. Southern Ukraine's defense forces found a Russian SA-17 Grizzly anti-aircraft missile system in a forest landing. Ukrainian artillerymen accepted the intelligence data and launched an accurate strike with HIMARS. The Russian air defense system was successfully destroyed. And this is the Kursk region, the buffer zone of the Ukrainian military, where they have also taken good positions and are destroying the Russian invaders. Then, the Ukrainian military used Dragon drones to burn out the Russian occupiers and their combat kit. This Russian armored personnel carrier moving towards the Ukrainian military was first hit by a drone, and then the next kamikaze drone completely destroyed it. And then -1 Russian tank and 1 armored personnel carrier that was completely burned. In the Kurakov sector, Ukrainian reconnaissance men spotted an enemy Russian tank looking for a place to ambush in the Ukrainian-controlled area. Immediately after the target was spotted, a kamikaze drone was launched to attack the enemy. While searching for an ambush, the enemy tank hit a mine and was unable to continue moving. After which, Ukrainian operators also hit it with a drone. The tankers managed to survive the attack. They ran into the woods, hoping that the Ukrainian military would not see them. But it didn't work out the way the Russians wanted. The Ukrainian military flew in with bomber drones and dropped several more bombs. After that, the mission was successfully completed. This is an armored personnel carrier of the Russian military moving across the field, seeing 2 Ukrainian tanks and a Ukrainian reconnaissance drone flying behind it. But the Russians are not bothered by this at all. They continue to drive close to the Ukrainian tank and keep driving. The The Ukrainian tanker waited for the enemy armored personnel carrier to get closer, and then he delivered a precise, almost point-blank, strike. The tank crew managed to survive, but Ukrainian defenders did not finish them off. And this is a Russian military superhero. He pulled on a black bag, which is used to bury the dead, and wanted to hide from a Ukrainian drone. He ran between the trees for a long time, but luck was not on his side. Two more Russian tank crews who made a mistake when they went to fight against the Ukrainian army. Ukrainian defenders fired 2 drones that destroyed both tanks. In the Orikhiv district, the Russian military gathered courage and decided to storm the positions of the Ukrainian defenders of the 47th Brigade with 1 tank. But on the way to the positions, they were met by a Ukrainian kamikaze drone and turned the tank into a pile of hot metal. Here, Ukrainian scouts noticed a rotation among the Russian military. Without hesitation, the first bomb was dropped on the occupier's vehicle, followed by another, which completely destroyed the vehicle and disarmed its crew. Another enemy target spotted by Ukrainian drone operators was destroyed, and another fireworks display from a tank. And this was a column of Russian mercenaries trying to break through the Ukrainian defense sector, but the defenders of Ukraine gave a powerful rebuff and destroyed all the enemies. And another accurate hit on the Russian column. The Russian infantry on the occupied lands of the Ukrainian territory in Zaporizhzhia region decided to conduct training for future snipers, but Ukrainian intelligence is not asleep. All the coordinates were passed on to the artillery, and then a devastating strike was launched with HIMARS cluster bombs. Another Russian self-propelled artillery unit was destroyed by a Ukrainian kamikaze drone. Ukrainian drone operators are constantly working in an aggressive style, destroying enemy attempts to attack Ukrainian territory. A Ukrainian reconnaissance drone spotted a Russian landing party trying to cross the border to assault Ukrainian positions. Having promptly transmitted the coordinates, a Ukrainian tank drove to meet him and killed the entire crew and armored personnel carrier with 1 shot. And another unsuccessful assault by the Russian military that ended in total destruction. The Ukrainian military defeated the occupiers' heavy equipment and disarmed the personnel. Kharkiv region, a settlement completely destroyed by Russian invaders. 2 Russian mercenaries are trying to find a place to rest, but a Ukrainian drone operator has other plans for them. Another stronghold of the Russian military was discovered by Ukrainian scouts, and then kamikaze drones flew in and destroyed everything. And this is the enemy's fortification where the occupiers were sitting. They definitely did not expect an explosive shell to come there. 3 tanks tried to ambush the Ukrainian defense, but they met a sad end. These 2 occupation tanks tried to escape from the battlefield because their brigade was defeated, but they failed. Ukrainian artillery hit them very hard. And this is the destruction of a Russian artillery unit by a Ukrainian kamikaze drone. The fireworks were a success. Pokrovsky direction, Ukrainian aerial reconnaissance goes hunting. Operators spotted an enemy Grad multiple rocket launcher system. All the coordinates of the enemy object were transmitted to the artillery group. This is where the Ukrainian Patriot anti-aircraft missile system comes into play. The charge was fired, and of course, in this case, the enemy object no longer had a chance. And these are the soldiers of the same brigade in the Pokrovsk sector, destroying an enemy tank and an infantry fighting vehicle that tried to break through the Ukrainian defense. For the Russian occupiers, this maneuver ended in failure. Ukrainian artillery destroyed all of them. And this is what the Russian equipment looks like after Ukrainian defenders have fired on it. In the Kupiansk sector, the Ukrainian military discovered another very attractive target in the field. It was a Russian SA-17 Grizzly anti-aircraft missile system. It often practiced firing at the positions of the defenders. The Ukrainian military fired one high-precision missile directly at the target. This is an inevitable destruction for this installation. These are Russian invaders, running away from Ukrainian defenders after being defeated on the battlefield, but the kamikaze drone operators catch up with the Russians and disarm the occupiers and destroy their equipment. This is a Ukrainian HIMARS that has accurately fired at a downed Russian tank. The tank turned into a big fireworks display. And these are Ukrainian drone operators, destroying invading tanks, armored vehicles, and the occupiers who tried to break through the Ukrainian defense line. After a good party, the Russian invaders went for a ride on Ukrainian lands, but they did not even realize that they were being watched by Ukrainian drones. Well, one successful drone arrival changes the whole situation, and the car, along with the occupiers, takes off. In the Kharkiv sector, a reconnaissance drone spotted an enemy SA-11 Gradfly launcher. The enemy launcher was destroyed by Ukrainian artillery in a matter of minutes. And then there is the destruction of an enemy armored vehicle by the Ukrainian military using a javelin. One hit, one shot. Here, the Russian occupiers dug a hole for the tank to disguise it and protect it from Ukrainian artillery, but it didn't work out as expected. The Ukrainian artillery hit the target accurately. This tank was already well camouflaged, but it was not a big problem for Ukrainian scouts. With a powerful shot, they destroyed the enemy object. And this is the Kurakov direction, where the Russian occupiers really wanted to capture Ukrainian positions, but it happened quite differently. Ukrainian defenders turned them into fireworks. Kurakov direction, the Russian occupiers are calmly wandering around the destroyed Ukrainian settlement, but they do not even realize that a Ukrainian drone is watching them. When the occupiers entered the destroyed building, a kamikaze drone followed them. Well, for these occupiers, it was the last thing they could remember. In the Kharkiv sector, the occupiers were preparing a surprise attack on the Ukrainian armed forces. However, as it turned out, the Ukrainian military were ahead of the invaders and opened fire first. The occupiers suffered heavy losses, including 3 armored personnel carriers destroyed. And this is the Ukrainian Marines clearing Ukrainian lands from the invaders by dropping bombs from drones. This is the Ukrainian HIMARS practicing on a Russian convoy of tanks. The Russian military did not expect this course of events. And another work of HIMARS on Russian tanks that tried to seize the positions of the Ukrainian military. Both tanks were successfully destroyed. A Russian convoy of 4 military vehicles, consisting of 2 tanks and 2 armored personnel carriers, was destroyed in the Pokrovsky direction. The occupiers tried to redeploy troops to attack the positions of Ukrainian defenders by surprise, but they were completely destroyed by kamikaze drones. A reconnaissance drone spotted an enemy tank on the horizon. Ukrainian aerial reconnaissance transmitted the coordinates to the artillery, after which an accurate deadly charge was fired. This is the crew of the invaders who entered the territory controlled by the Ukrainian military and were attacked with an FGM-148 Javelin directly into the tank. One of the crew members started to burn, and the other 2 invaders left the tank and fled. Ukrainian troops turn Russian tank into scrap metal with another shot. And here is an example of the fact that in the Russian army, everyone is for themselves. These 2 Russian occupiers tried to escape from the battlefield on a motorcycle. One of them was wounded. In order not to burden the motorcycle, the other occupier decided to leave it on the battlefield. And this is another Russian convoy of 8 military vehicles trying to storm Ukrainian positions. One shot at a time, the defenders began to destroy the enemy's intentions. Ukrainian artillerymen fiercely began to strike, destroying all enemies along with their equipment. These two Russian tanks wanted to conduct reconnaissance in the Ukrainian-controlled territories. A Ukrainian crew on a German Leopard 2A4 tank drove out to meet them. It destroyed one Russian tank with a single shot and then began hunting for another. The Ukrainian tank managed to hit another Russian tank, but it withstood the attack and fled the battlefield. And this is the Ukrainian military conducting offensive operations in the Kursk sector. Using tanks, artillery, and drones, the Ukrainian military is successfully destroying the enemy. A Ukrainian reconnaissance drone spots a cluster of Russian occupiers, and Ukrainian artillery is sent to the same location, striking with conventional bombs and cluster munitions. After breaking through the first line of defense, the Ukrainian military is advancing further. At the same time, the Russians begin to pull together the rest of their troops. But Ukraine's defenders continue to destroy the enemy. This is already the Kharkiv region. A Ukrainian kamikaze drone destroys an enemy unit with a single hit under the tank's turret. Another destruction of the Russian occupiers. This Russian tank tried to fight against the Ukrainian military, but received a targeted charge from a drone. This is where Ukrainian reconnaissance men saw a Russian surface-to-air missile system. One warhead was dropped on it, after which the target was successfully destroyed. Thank you, friends. That's all for today. Subscribe to the channel to keep up with the latest developments. This video was prepared by Hustler. See you soon.